Hey everybody, thanks for joining us this week on the Extra Point Show.
Yep. We are first few weeks into the off season, so we actually surprisingly have a good amount of news to talk about. I was, kind of surprised about that. But...
The NFL gods have blessed us with a good amount of content. We can't promise that it's always going to be this fruitful, but 1 week removed from the Super Bowl, I guess we'll start there. Obviously,
Is it 1 week? Is it only 1 week?
Yeah, it was last Sunday.
I thought it was like
Yep,
2
weeks. It was last Sunday.
So it was last Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah. Man, it starts to feel like an eternity, every day that football's not there. It's like, oh man,
Oh
how
my
long has it
God!
been now?
Yeah, it's hell. It's hell for
Just
sure.
wait. We've only begun. We've only just begun.
Yeah, and there's a few other things to talk about on that. I mean, I'm actually looking forward to the USFL, the United States Football League, that's being relaunched. I think that's coming back in April, if I want to say. And then to our show last week, and it was funny because I had said something that was like, if the Bengals can hold the Rams to around like 20 points, that they could probably win the game, and they ended up holding them to 23. But if they could have just battened down the hatches,
Yeah, I mean the way that game played
Yeah.
out with the ref calls, honestly,
Yeah.
it seems like
Yeah.
they kind of just gave. I mean, I hate to say that, but that's
it
really
seemed
what
like
it kinda looks
Cincinnati
like.
had the stop. Cincinnati was down there; they had the stop, and basically the drive was extended, by a very questionable pass interference call, where there was a pass interference, or there was a no call earlier on the T. Higgins Bengals touchdown catch, where he was basically being blanketed by Ramsey, and that was a no call. But basically a linebacker has good coverage on a receiver. He was a little tight on him, but I mean, not what I should have considered pass interference. And there were several penalties. Also on a fourth and the Bengals 4th and 1, Aaron Donald being offsides was huge. That should have been an automatic first down. So a lot of
that was one of the biggest ones.
Yeah, I mean, you got to wonder, these referees, the players can get fined, but why are we not fining and suspending these officials for missed calls like that?
Yeah.
I mean, and we have instant replay, so there's no reason why a game.
That's why
especially,
it's a little fishy sometimes when things like this happen. When it's kind of that many blatant things. It's like, really
very, very strange. Very strange.
How? It's a Super
They
Bowl.
basically, I mean, the Bengals had the Super Bowl one, their first Super Bowl ever. It would have been, and they get robbed. They get absolutely robbed. It was a good game up until that point. And what was crazy is the referees. It was probably, to my recollection, probably the least flagged Super Bowl up until that point, up until the last 5 minutes. And then the refs just went flag crazy. It was like, what the fuck is this? This is some bullshit. But I mean, Rams are your world champions, unfortunately. I mean, they and they beat us to get there, which is all the shittier. But
Yeah, I hate to say it, but I wasn't that surprised that they won because they did look like the better team going into it, and I was like, I remember saying they look like a Super Bowl team to me.
Yeah, and they were
So
all their.
I wanted the Bengals to win, but
All their acquisitions paid off. I mean, Matt Stafford, 26 of 40, 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 picks, but he overcame it. I mean, the Rams didn't run for shit. Cam Akers had 13 carries for 21 yards. But Cooper Kupp, 8 catches, 92 yards, 2 touchdowns. He was named the MVP. Also notable in that game, Odell Beckham Jr., who was the big middle of the season acquisition. 2 catches, 52 yards, and 1 touchdown before leaving the game with a torn ACL, which was ruled later. And obviously that's a big injury because he's going into the offseason where he's going to be a free agent again. So he wants to return to the Rams, but we'll see if that happens. Obviously, there have been other teams linked to have potential interested in OBJ. One of them is the Kansas City Chiefs. So, I mean, if they could get Beckham next to Tyreek Hill and Kelsey and all those other players, they'd have even a more dangerous offense.
This is his second time tearing his ACL, correct?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so that's
okay,
pretty.
Well,
I mean, we'll have to see what condition he returns in. Yeah,
that's one of those things. Exactly.
Yeah.
That's dependent on the condition that he returns in.
He was looking great.
Given it's the second time,
Right.
though, I wouldn't.
Exactly. Do we know if it was in the same knee?
I actually think we did talk about this. I think it was maybe the other knee, but I could be wrong.
If there's any one thing, then it's probably that. If it is the other knee, then if you tear the same ACL,
that would make it a little more. But still, man, I mean, both their ACLs.
Yeah, I mean that's not a great thing either. I mean, you're coming in and it's like, I've got a wide receiver with 2 bad ACLs, and it's like, even though the technology in ACL surgery has come as far as it has. I mean, an ACL tear back in the 80s or 90s could be a career ender. Now, you miss the season and you come back. Or if you're Cam Akers,
which is honestly amazing, because for most people, you do that shit and they don't, most people don't get the rehab and the stuff that they get. So the fact that they're able to come back and play football again, and sometimes at just as high of a level, is just crazy.
Yeah, and for Cam Akers to return, I mean, he tore his ACL in the preseason, and he returned for the last game of the regular season in the playoff run. Although he wasn't very effective in the Super Bowl. Nobody's surprised that Cooper Kupp is the MVP. He's been obviously, the Rams' best offensive player all season long. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens with Odell. I mean, like I said, 2 catches, 51 yards, and a touchdown before he had a non-contact injury. So we'll have to see where he ends up. On the other side of things, Joey Burrow was sacked 70 times in the 21 games that he played this season.
Jesus.
Which is 3rd most all time, second only to Randall Cunningham in 86, and rookie David Carr in 2002, who was sacked 76 times as a rookie. So, yeah. On an expansion team. On an expansion. Yeah, exactly. Literally.
Well, that kind of makes more sense.
Yeah. They did not invest in the line. Safe to say. But yeah, Joey Burrow sacked 70 times, still made it to the Super Bowl, which is, that's insanely good for as many times. In the game against the Titans, the divisional game, he got sacked 9 times and they still won and advanced. But
yeah, I don't know how that works, but
yeah, but Zach Taylor, who has actually earned himself a contract extension, so good for 3rd-year head coach Zach Taylor, getting a contract extension through 2026. And owner Mike Brown have said that they are going to invest serious resources into the offensive line this offseason to help keep Joey Burrow upright. Now, they could have had Penei Sewell last offseason, but instead they went with Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow's college teammate, which was a great decision. But obviously,
yeah, he's been really good for them.
Maybe this season they invest in the offensive line. Now, moving on from the Super Bowl, this is other Super Bowl Sunday news. It happened in the wee hours of the morning. If you want to take
Adrian Peterson news.
Yeah, AP is back in the news, unfortunately, and not for the right reasons.
Unfortunately. Yeah. So 36-year-old Adrian Peterson arrested Sunday morning at Los Angeles International Airport on charges of domestic violence. According to a Los Angeles Airport police statement, they received a call around 8:30 a.m. local time about a possible domestic violence on board an aircraft bound for Houston, and responded to a verbal and physical altercation between a male suspect and a female victim. Peterson was booked into jail, given a $50,000 bail, and released on Sunday, because obviously that isn't much for him, I would imagine.
Yeah, that's
later that afternoon. He did have a statement put out by a representative where he said his wife Ashley, or both him and his wife Ashley, said in a statement that the two had a verbal argument on the flight. Peterson grabbed her wedding ring and scratched her finger. A source close to the Peterson said, and the plane then returned to the gate. The sources said Ashley Peterson was not going to press charges.
Right. And the Peterson's representative also said, here's a quote from them. This is a private misunderstanding between husband and wife, and we anticipate it will all be resolved shortly. Peterson was arrested at 9:20 a.m. and has a court date set for June 16th. Ashley Peterson and the other passengers were able to continue on to Houston on their flight, and Peterson was charged. Obviously, this isn't the first time Peterson has been in the news for legal issues. It's been well known that...
and legal issues of the same nature,
right,
basically.
Exactly.
I mean, it's another kind of a domestic violence, domestic abuse kind of a case. I mean, this doesn't really sound quite like that. I mean, it's just, you don't do shit like that on a plane.
Yeah.
Obviously. Yeah. It's, things are pretty strict on a plane,
Right.
but I mean, obviously, what he did in the past was significantly worse.
Yeah.
I mean, at least I would say when he was charged with felony child abuse back in 2014, he used a switch to spank his then 4-year-old son, which resulted in cuts and bruises all over his body. Peterson eventually pleaded no contest to a reduced charge of misdemeanor reckless assault. In addition to a 2-year probation period, he was fined $4,000 and performed 80 hours of community service. Yeah. And the NFL suspended him for 1 year.
Yeah, I remember when that was happening. That was a huge deal, and he missed the whole season with the Vikings. And that was when he was really at the peak.
I wasn't sure if he'd come back.
Yeah,
at that point.
Exactly. Yeah. So I mean, it's tough to say. At this point, if after this. He plays in the NFL again. Obviously, we did see a little bit of AP this past season. The 15-year veteran finished this past season on injured reserve with the Seahawks, who had signed him to their practice squad in December after a 3-game run with the Tennessee Titans. He appeared in just 1 game with Seattle, ironically against the 49ers. He carried the football 11 times for 16 yards and a touchdown, which isn't much, but I mean, who really did run the ball well against us this season, to be honest. So, I mean, I'm
sure there was people significantly better than that. But
yeah. But that touchdown did tie Jim Brown for 10th place on the NFL's all-time touchdown list, and Peterson ranks 5th in NFL history with 14,918 yards, career rushing yards. And he said he plans to continue playing next season, but we will have to see whether he gets any interest, because obviously that's got to be
it's more if a team wants him to play for them or not.
It's like,
exactly. I intend to play. It's like, well, bro, you can intend to play all you want.
Play if somebody wants you, yeah. So
there's probably some 55-year-old guy out there who's like, I want to play. Well, yeah, but
I will say this: I would like to see him at least get 82 more yards to at least get to the 15,000. I think that would be
I agree.
A nice solid figure for AP, because I've always been, this kind of shit aside, I've always been an AP fan. I mean, he's been one of the best.
Yeah, his play on the field is nice to watch. I mean, given his other things are not great. I'm not going to advocate any of that. It's definitely not good.
We never would. Yeah.
Exactly. But I mean, he has been entertaining on the football field, and that would be that's as far as it goes. But as a person, I'm not sure if he's. Maybe he's, maybe he learned from it. I don't know. Although with this recent thing, you don't know. Although it sounds like, they just had an argument, but you got to be kind of stupid to do that on a plane in front of a bunch of people. Like,
Let me ask you, bud. Do you think he ever plays another down in the NFL again? Your opinion?
I mean, I think so. If a team is interested in him, yes, that would.
Yeah,
really be
I don't think this would necessarily disqualify him.
Yeah, I don't think that this had.
People bounce back from worse shit. In the NFL.
No, given his other shit that happened in 2014 and he still played again, absolutely. This isn't going to be. I mean, this seems actually pretty minor to me. I wouldn't hold this against him at all. I'd be like, all right, well,
it's a minor argument. It's just one of those time and place things. It's like obviously.
Exactly. Don't do that on an airplane, man. Like you're inviting attention you don't need. If that happens in your own house between 2 people, okay, whatever.
Exactly.
Hopefully that would get resolved and be like, oh, I apologize, I didn't mean to hurt your finger. Fine. But I mean, who knows? I don't know what the relationship's like. But
hopefully.
But yeah, this is significantly less bad than the last thing that he was arrested for. So I don't think it'll affect that. It's going to be a matter of his production on the field, which, given the chances he did have last season,
he didn't perform well.
He didn't perform. So I wouldn't be surprised if he didn't play again, given his age and given the way he performed, the chances that he did have.
Fair enough. Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to depend. I think, like in this situation, he was brought in with Tennessee as, an injury replacement for Derrick Henry. But, obviously, had it not been for that, I don't think he would have really been on a team. I think, it was basically...
Yeah, I agree. And then it kind of showed when he played and didn't really do a lot. It's like, your time's up, man.
Yeah. Speaking of players that have spent some time away from the game, Malcolm Butler, Super Bowl hero Malcolm Butler, his time away from the football field could be nearing an end. The Cardinals released Malcolm Butler from the reserve retired list, and Ian Rappaport, the NFL insider, reported that this release means that Butler's now free to sign with any team that he desires. Butler's been working out diligently, leading many to believe that a return to the NFL is coming in the near future. And he last played in 2020 with the Tennessee Titans, where he played in all 16 games, recording a career-high four interceptions. And, of course, Malcolm Butler, as you and everybody know, best known for being the goal line hero in Super Bowl 50 at the goal line when genius all-time head coach Pete Carroll, has had Marshawn Lynch in the backfield, and he elected to throw the football, and it was picked off by Malcolm Butler.
Why?
Giving the Patriots the 24-20, or I'm sorry, 28-24 Super Bowl win. Malcolm Butler, Super Bowl hero. I know he's one of my favorites, and obviously with the Niners potentially being in the market for a cornerback, with him and also Stephon Gilmore is also going to be from Carolina. He was traded. New England traded him to Carolina last season, so he would also be a guy that I'd be interested in.
Okay, that's why New England popped in my head.
Yeah.
I forgot to say that he went to Carolina.
Yeah, he went to Carolina mid-season last year and had 2 interceptions in 8 games. For the half season that he played with them. So both of those guys are guys that I'd potentially like to see the Niners target in free agency, because we could definitely use another strong corner next to Emmanuel Mosley. Even though I think Ambry Thomas is going to be good, if we can get Malcolm Butler, I mean the man's got Super Bowl experience.
Yeah, I mean you can't turn that down. That's a good opportunity if he's available. I mean, depending on the price, obviously.
Right. Yeah.
As everything is.
Right. Yeah. Now, he did sign. Well, yeah. I mean, actually, speaking of price, he was a Tennessee salary cap dump after finishing the 2020 season with the Titans. After he initially signed with them on a 5-year contract in free agency in 2018, then he signed a 1-year. $3.25 million contract with Arizona. So this is what tells me that we might not be able to get him for, too bad of a price tag. And then he didn't play. He was expected to start opposite of Byron Murphy because Arizona had Patrick Peterson go to Minnesota. He left in free agency. But he never ended up playing in the regular season. And he ended up getting placed on the reserve retired list. And after spending 2021 away from football after a personal situation in training camp, he's looking to get back into the game. So I mean, we'll have to see what his asking price is. But I mean, I'd assume it would probably, since he didn't play, it wouldn't be more than $3.25 million on a 1-year deal. It might even be a little bit less.
I mean, that's not bad.
I would take a guy with Super Bowl experience that is like
take that all day.
That's in the mind of Russell Wilson. If Russell's going to stick around in the NFC West, I mean, if two times a season, potentially he's got the ability to.
Yeah, you know what? There's actually been some rumors about Russell Wilson going to the Commanders.
Right.
That happens.
I know.
But,
we'll know more in a month. We'll know more.
That would be. I mean, that would be fantastic. But although I feel like the cost would be obscene, and it would be like bye picks for the next 3 years. And,
I'd be.
I don't know if that's necessarily worth it. But that has been a rumor swirling around.
I would as well.
But if he did come there, that would be it'd be
because not only does that does 2 things that benefit me directly. I mean, as a fan of the Commanders, it's great to see Russ go there.
Gets Russell Wilson out of the NFC West.
Gets Russ out of the West, and then at that point. The Niners, have a little bit. I don't want to say clearer path, but it definitely doesn't hurt things. That division's always going to be tough, especially with the Rams. Although the Rams aren't going to be able to pay everybody, we're going to have to see who they're able to keep at this point. But stay tuned to find that out.
Unless they pull like the Buccaneers did this last season and re-sign all of their 22 starters.
They kept damn near everybody, but that's the first time that's ever happened. I don't see that happening again.
Yeah, that's very rare.
Now, in other news that we've reported on, this is kind of like a follow-up to a lot of things. Brian Flores. Now, Brian Flores did not get a head coaching job. However, he was, in fact, hired. He was actually hired by the Pittsburgh Steelers to...
which kind of surprised me. I really wasn't entirely expecting that.
Yeah, remember you said that you thought he might not coach again, and obviously he's back.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems odd if you're suing the NFL for another team to like hire you as their head coach when the NFL is like technically their boss, basically.
Yeah.
I mean, they're in. it's just weird. Like, I mean, I guess obviously these organizations can make their own decisions to some extent, but
Yeah, and I mean, obviously, Mike Tomlin, said in the statement that he's excited about Brian Flores joining our coaching staff, given his history of developing and teaching defensive players during his time in the NFL. Brian's resume speaks for itself, and I look forward to him adding his expertise to help our team. So, yeah, I mean, obviously Flores and his legal team have said that the lawsuit is ongoing despite this job. So that is still, he's not canceling the lawsuit or anything. That is still planning to be moved forward with. I don't know if I mentioned it, but he will be the senior defensive assistant and linebackers coach for newly promoted defensive coordinator Terrell Austin, who's replacing Keith Butler, the longtime defensive coordinator who stepped down in Pittsburgh there. So, yeah, I mean, interesting development there. Obviously, good to see Flores back in the league, but we'll still have to follow up and see how it goes with the lawsuit, because that's very interesting.
Yeah, that's really the biggest story there with him. I mean, well, I guess it is. Whatever happens with that. But although if he's already gotten hired by another team, then maybe if after the lawsuit finishes, depending on the result, maybe then they wouldn't allow him to be hired again. But I guess as of now, because it's ongoing, maybe it's kind of one of those things.
Yeah, that's true.
It just surprises me though that a team would do that and take the risk. It just seems like, I don't know. I'm surprised by that.
Yeah, I mean, he's a good coach, but so I mean, I think that.
Oh yeah, I'm not denying that. I'm just saying, just based on the problems it might cause.
But yeah, you don't know what's going to happen. I mean, you don't know if, depending on on this suit, if the NFL. I mean, I don't know if they would rule this, or if they even could rule this. But let's say midway through next season, the NFL rules against Brian Flores and he's like suspended. And then, like one of your top defensive assistants is like suspended. I mean, that can happen with any defensive coach or any coach, I guess, in the NFL. So it's a risk you take. But yeah, I mean, we'll have to follow the situation and see what happens. Obviously, we mentioned Flores in the running for the Giants, Texans, Saints, Giants, and Saints jobs. The Giants job going to Brian Dable, Houston, and New Orleans, promoting in-house candidates with Lovie Smith and Dennis Allen, respectively. And also another thing that I will mention, because this is relevant. He added another team to the suit. He added the Texans to the suit, if you didn't hear that.
Oh, really? I did not know that,
saying that the
actually.
Texans intentionally didn't hire him after they were... Because I remember, I think we talked about it, I remember he was like one of the favorites to land the Texans job. And then they, obviously went with Lovie Smith. So he's trying to prove that they intentionally didn't hire him because of the ongoing suit, which is almost an impossible thing to prove. I mean, how do you prove that in court?
Yeah.
So,
that's a.
But
yeah.
I mean, good luck, Brian. Good luck, Coach. And as we promised earlier, there's some XFL news. The NFL and the XFL have reached a deal on a collaboration. On select innovation programs to further expand the game of football and create increased opportunities for player development, both on and off the field. So this was announced by the XFL on Monday. The XFL says the focus of its collaboration with the NFL will be health and safety initiatives, including forward-thinking physical and mental programs for players, the study of playing surfaces and equipment, and the sharing of game trends and data. That's relevant because, as we mentioned earlier on the show, OBJ tearing his ACL on the turf field at SoFi, and a lot of players reached out and said turf should be banned. So interesting that they're looking into something. And I don't remember what player it was, but a player came out recently and said that all 32 NFL teams make enough money to maintain natural grass fields, that nobody should be playing on artificial turf anymore.
Absolutely.
And, if it's causing injuries, remember Game 2 of last season, the 2020 season, when we lost Bosa, Bosa, Eric Armstead, and I'm trying to think of who else. We lost like 3 players to the ACL on the Jets turf in the Meadowlands. Remember that shit?
Oh, yeah. Okay. Yeah,
It was Jimmy. It was Jimmy.
Yeah, I remember there being
Jimmy
several...
was the other one.
Was it Jimmy?
Jimmy's
Oh,
high
my
ankle
God.
sprain, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's when Mullins
yeah.
came in.
Yeah, so that was
God.
what it was. So I'm with it. I mean, do anything that you can to, look into the safety of the game without making the game, just different. I mean, I'm not about eliminating the kickoff. I know that's something that they've tried to do because of all the special teams injuries.
Yeah.
But yeah. So there was a quote by Troy Vincent, former NFL player and Eagles safety Troy Vincent, who's now NFL executive and VP of football operations, who has stated, "The XFL has shown us that innovation is one of its core principles. We are hopeful that this relationship will support further development and improvements in the game of football at all levels." And then the XFL, of course, was refounded in 2018. It had its inaugural season back in 2020 before COVID. Obviously, old Uncle COVID came in and fucked everything up, including the XFL, midway through the season, and forced the league to cease operations. So Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson bought it from Vince McMahon. His old buddy Vince McMahon, giving him a good price on the XFL. We appreciate you, Vince. Thanks because The Rock's actually going to do something with it now. And as we mentioned earlier, the XFL is slated to return to play in 2023. Well, now the NFL's associated with it, bud. So now I feel like the NFL's kind of on the hook.
That should help. The
NFL's kind of tethered to its success now. It's like if the XFL fails, I feel like it makes the NFL look bad now. So it's like...
Yeah, but the NFL's not going to fail even if the XFL...
The NFL will never fail.
The
NFL will never fail.
Yeah, but
that's true. But yeah. And then Danny Garcia, who is the ex-wife of The Rock, and his business partner, the co-owner and chairwoman, was also quoted as saying, "We're extremely pleased to collaborate with the NFL in these important areas. We're bringing forward an XFL that is progressive and forward-thinking when it comes to innovation, leveraging the newest technology to enhance game day experience. We have an open field for innovative rules to enhance in-game access, sharing insights and practices between the XFL and NFL. Will do a tremendous amount of good for the game of football and support the player ecosystem overall." So, and then it was also mentioned that among the other things that they want to do is they want to work together through international football development, scouting, and enhancement of officiating. I'm all about enhancing officiating, as we just talked about the bullshit of the Super Bowl.
Well, I think every single football fan on the damn planet is for better officiating. I mean,
you got to have it. You got to have it. Or you got to start holding these...
But this actually sounds...
Go ahead.
I was just say this actually does sound cool.
It does.
I mean,
it sounds cool as hell.
The XFL, it might be a lower level league, but I don't know.
I'm excited to see it, dude. I cannot wait for the XFL.
I'm excited. Yeah.
That
sounds
stoked.
Cool. I'm definitely.
I want to see because I saw the first XFL. I saw the initial XFL when it first came out and only lasted one season. Because before this past season, it came out in the early 2000s and it only lasted one season. That's where Tommy.
Yeah, I vaguely remember that.
That's where Tommy Mad Dog Maddox for the Pittsburgh Steelers came from, and a few other notable players. Rod Smart, the Carolina return man, known as He Hate Me. There were some notable XFL guys, but yeah. Anyway, moving on from that, I'm excited to see what happens with that. Also, one other thing. I remember seeing. I want to talk about this real briefly before we move on. The idea of relegation. I know you saw the meme too. That was maybe now it's a possibility. So the meme, which was, every year, the best team from the XFL should play the worst team from the NFL.
Oh, yes.
And there's actually, I was talking to my buddy about it, and there's this thing called relegation that they do in the Premier League in soccer. Every year, the top 3 teams go up to the Premier League, and the bottom 3 teams drop down. So imagine if this was a real concept that was developed. It would be great for viewing. And imagine if you've got...
That would be, I have to say, that would be...
XFL team versus the Jacksonville Jaguars, and the winning team goes on, and then if the Jags lose, they go down to the XFL for a year. And then, they've got to earn their way back up. Like that would be
Yeah, I mean, that's probably not ever going to happen, but it would be really entertaining. Because the fans of that NFL team would be like, what the fuck, man?
No.
Like,
Yeah.
there's just no way that they would let that actually happen, but it is a very, very good concept.
And then imagine if your team's the team that gets sent down to the XFL. Like, imagine if the Niners are the Commanders.
Exactly, that's my point. Like, whatever team it is, they're going to, all those, they're going to be like, dude, what the fuck? This is
the legacy of the 49ers
like,
getting sent down to the XFL for a season. You have
a real shit season, a whole bunch of injuries. You go 2-14, and then, however many games it is now.
Because it's happened. Because we went fucking 4-12 the other one. It's like
it's like you don't want that shit. No, it sounds like a good concept in theory, and it would be entertaining. But no, whatever team it is that gets demoted, no, that's just gonna be so. And what if they don't make it back the following year? What if they get like Jesus? It could just be so.
What if they're
bad.
like a mid-level team in the XFL? They don't even make the XFL playoffs.
Yeah, right. Exactly. Yeah, and then what happens? What happens? There's just no way the NFL is going to let that happen with a franchise.
It would
like
beat
that,
the shit out of your revenue.
It would be really funny
though. It would beat the shit out of your revenue for sure.
It'd be yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, moving on. Because we got about 3 weeks to go. That's why we're talking about these crazy theories. We got 3 weeks to go before the start of the new league year, which is March 16th, and the start of free agency, which, if you didn't hear it in the first Extra Point show, I fucking love free agency. Go back and watch it. But, so some teams are already starting to do a little bit of spring cleaning, starting to make a little bit of room. Obviously, the Saints need to get on that with their $72 million, over the cap. But the Atlanta Falcons are the first team of note to do so, releasing veteran pass rusher Dante Fowler. Now, Dante Fowler was acquired after signing a 3-year deal with Atlanta in 2020. After 2 seasons with the Falcons, he had started 19 of 28 games and lodged 7.5 sacks, 16 quarterback hits, and 4 forced fumbles. Now, that production was far short of what he did in 2019. In a standout 2019 year, which actually got him that big free agency deal, when he played for the Los Angeles Rams and put up 11.5 sacks. So he's a former number 3 overall pick from the 2015 draft from the Jacksonville Jaguars. So it'll be interesting to see what ends up happening with him. He's spent some time in the last couple of seasons on both the COVID and injured reserve list. But obviously, like I said, he started 19 out of 28 possible games over the last 2 seasons. So he's been mostly healthy, just missing a couple games here and there. But Falcons just trying to make some, like I said, clear some cap room before the start of next season.
Yeah, which sounds like they definitely need that. And I'm sure he could be a benefit to somebody.
Yeah, I mean, obviously a team looking for pass rushing help. I really don't look at either the Niners or Washington to sign him because we're both pretty stout on our defensive lines. But, a team that could definitely benefit from his services. Obviously I don't think he's going to get that big 3-year free agent contract that he got before. After managing only 7.5 sacks over the last 2 seasons, I bet he signs probably a 1-year prove-it deal, and that probably determines where he goes from here on out.
Yeah, that seems to be a big thing.
Especially last season with a reduced cap, a lot of players, we saw more players than ever signing the 1-year contracts on the prove-it deals. A lot of them earned themselves another deal, and a lot of them didn't.
Yeah.
Retirement report following an 8-year career in the NFL. Atlanta, mostly known for his time in Atlanta, 7 years with the Falcons, most recently spent the last season with the Bengals on their magical Super Bowl run.
Almost got himself
a ring. Safety Ricardo Allen retiring from the NFL after 8 seasons. Now, what's interesting about Ricardo Allen, and he kind of reveals it here in his quote, we'll put the quote up for you. I've always wondered how it would feel giving up what most people would consider to be most of me, and that's being a professional athlete. But the truth is, I'm blessed to be able to say that it's been good. It could have been better with 2 Super Bowl rings, but who's complaining? Not me. And then also in his post, he said, "Dear football career, I'm grateful for you, and I'm thankful for the opportunity you gave me to turn nothing but hard work into the foundation of a growing legacy. You've shown me it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish. Now, like I said, in that quote, he mentions the 2 Super Bowl rings. Obviously, the second opportunity he had was in his second year being on the Atlanta Falcons in what we've talked about being the Kyle Shanahan when he was the offensive coordinator. And it wasn't all on Kyle, obviously. It was a lot on the offense or on the defense of Atlanta. But the Super Bowl collapse against the Patriots. So kind of had 2 opportunities. He could have had 2 rings, but instead he retires with none. But the opportunity at 2, obviously better than not playing in the game at all.
Yeah, I was gonna say at least being in the Super Bowl is still something.
Yeah, it's still it's a life-changing moment, and he's talked about opportunities after the game, and one of those opportunities that he's mentioned being interested in are he's got a potential future in coaching, so we'll have to see what formulates with that. Now he retires at age 30, and he ended up playing in 14 games this past season with 1 start. He was a backup mainly behind Jesse Bates and Von Bell. For his career, he tallied 77 starts in 91 games, recorded 355 tackles, 11 interceptions, and 26 passes defended. So, pretty solid career. Nothing. He's not going to go to the Hall of Fame, but definitely a solid career. So, good luck in retirement to you.
Yeah, definitely. Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the this is the second Commanders Countdown, I believe, since the name change happened.
Yes, sir.
Not a whole lot to cover. There is a bit of other news about some coaches and stuff, but I feel like the biggest news to talk about would be the quarterback options for next season. The most recent rumor to come out, well, actually, there's 2. One a little better than the other, but one NFL executive said the Commanders could justify trading the 11th pick, let me finish, in the NFL draft for Jimmy Garoppolo, which, in my opinion, is too much. I don't think trading a first-round pick for him is particularly worth it. I know you would love that because obviously the Niners would get a first-round pick, and you'd be, I'm going to take the first-round pick. But no, I mean, you have to admit the first-round, the 11th pick for Jimmy.
As they say, I'd be happy as the proverbial pig in shit. But,
right. So, I mean, I hope that is not actually true. Yeah. I mean, if it was like a second-round pick, I'd be totally game for that.
That's what we got Jimmy for. And I will say this. I mean, so coming over since we got him for a second-round pick, the man has been to 2 NFC Championship games and established an insane winning record. So I feel like he's only helped his. The injury thing is a concern, but he stayed healthy for 2 out of 4 seasons, really. One of those seasons he was acquired in the middle of the season, so you really can't count that as a full season.
I wouldn't deny that Jimmy has done well with San Francisco. I mean, he has a winning record, so I wouldn't deny any of that.
33 and 14.
The executive who did
just a 33.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So it's still a good record. The executive who anonymously about Washington's quarterback options. Doesn't think that Garoppolo is worth the 11th selection or any first-round choice based on skill set and injury history, which I completely agree with that. But he believes that the organization could justify the move if they deem the draft's top quarterbacks as unstartable, which, given the way it looks as of now, and the talk about the quarterbacks that are in the draft, that seems like it's probably the case. So this a high first-round pick would be quite the price for a quarterback who is mostly efficient in Kyle Shanahan's run-first offense. Niners beat writer Cam Inman this month said the team might take a day 2 draft pick for Jimmy G, which I would much prefer. Among the most QB desperate teams in NFL, Washington would be a bad spot if they once again had to turn to Taylor Heineke as their day 1 starter.
Yeah, I mean, and who knows how accurate that is. I mean, I think that. I mean, I'm not completely one to say that Heineke couldn't potentially end up as a starter one day on a team that's got a little bit more offensive talent. And I know, to counter that point, a lot of people are saying that Jimmy is, he's on a super talented, which he is. But let's take going to Washington, for example. I don't think the drop-off would really be that significant because, like let's say he does go to Washington. He's still got Antonio Gibson. He's still got J.D. McKissick if they re-sign him. So they've still got
Curtis Samuel if he's ever healthy
Curtis
again.
Samuel,
who
could be a gadget
Samuel
player.
Type thing.
Yeah. Potentially, obviously Terry McLaurin, who would be obviously, number one target.
Right.
And then Logan Thomas at tight end. And Jimmy loves throwing to the tight end as based off his relationship with Kittle. So I really don't
Kittle,
think that there would be much drop-off at all. I think that he could definitely succeed in Scott Turner's offense and maybe even produce better than what Heineke. Obviously, he would.
Oh, no, I would say he probably would produce better than Heineke. I mean, Heineke, he had a lot of heart, and he could run and make things happen. But honestly, his arm ability and arm strength is really what killed him.
Yeah.
I mean, he made some good throws. But
and Jimmy doesn't have a Mahomes arm, but Jimmy does usually throw a tight spiral and usually get the ball in position, albeit sometimes a little bit higher than you might like.
Yeah, I mean, well, no quarterback's perfect, but yes. But I would say Jimmy throws a prettier ball than Heineke does. But the main thing I think everyone liked about Heineke is his heart.
Oh,
the way that he approached the game. And it's hard. It's really hard. Like, the few fans that did hate on him, I don't understand
that pylon dive in the Tampa playoff game.
Dude, that won me over immediately. I was like, all right, well, you got me, bro.
And then I'll always love, when Chase Young was, just pointing to his jersey, pointing it, he's pointing his name on the back. It was just But, I mean...
So the other rumor that has... I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's it. We're moving on.
All right. I was just going to say the other rumor that has been circulating around is Russell Wilson, which obviously I'm sure everybody would be completely ecstatic for that. The only thing is, though, with the rumors I've seen, the price tag would be immense. 3 years of first-round picks. Just kind of an obscene price tag, which, I mean, I get it for a player like him that would...
that's if you're just giving
up really
picks.
Worth it?
I mean, that's if you're not throwing a player.
Yeah, it could be a trade as well. You're right. There could be picks as well as a traded player, and I would think that would also be likely, given Russell Wilson's caliber.
Yeah, more than likely. I mean, it definitely, obviously, like we discussed a couple shows ago, Russell's going to be exploring his options. He's made that clear. He's interested. He said that he would play for the Commanders after befriending John Allen at the
I know. I did see that. I couldn't believe that. I was like, oh wow. And I've seen a lot of analysts and stuff saying, oh, it'd be a good fit. I'm like, oh my god, that'd be amazing. But if the cost is too high, though, it's it's a really big decision. Like if let's just say hypothetically it was between Jimmy and Russ. Jimmy for even if it's 1 first and then Russ for 3 in a player. It's like, well, which one do you pick? Do you want to go with Russ and try and go all out on the quarterback, or maybe save the picks and go with Jimmy, who might get you there also.
And as I mentioned with Jimmy too, I mean, I think what would drive, as we kind of touched on, what would drive that value up would be the fact that obviously if we were going into last offseason with the quarterback draft, the quarterback crop in the draft where there were 5 guys taken in the first.
Oh, it'd be very, very different.
Jimmy wouldn't go for anything higher than a second pick, but because of maybe Malik Willis is the best looking quarterback, or who knows who's going to be the top guy taken. Obviously he's been reported.
Yeah, at this point I haven't looked into enough of these players, and draft is a long ways away. I'm not even going to speculate, but all I know is what I've heard in general sense that the QBs don't look like they're much
if you were going to use number 11 on a quarterback anyway, I think you've got a better chance using that pick on Jimmy than any of the guys in this year's draft. If you're set on drafting a quarterback anyway, because I mean.
You're right.
He's at least the guy.
You're completely right. Actually, I agree. I mean, that is a good point. That is a good point. So even if it did come down to being
I mean, Jimmy's a guy that if he got you into the playoffs, in the postseason, I mean, he's got a postseason record of.
It would still be nice to get him for a second and still have the first round pick, but you are not wrong actually. Given especially if they were going to draft a quarterback, which obviously if the prospects were great, that would be the plan. But given the prospects, then I mean, you're right. Jimmy for first. You pick
up a guy that's 4-2 in the playoffs on a team that's potentially playoff caliber, and he can get you there. Obviously, it's not the most attractive option. If you can get Russ, that's probably the move you want.
It's really it's the cost factor. It's because Russ would be the cost, Jimmy would be a lot cheaper. It's really a weighing your options kind of thing there. Obviously, Russell is probably going to be a better quarterback option, but is that cost worth it to the rest
Right.
of your team?
Exactly.
Maybe going with Jimmy and having the picks and having all of that and building around him would work better.
Right.
I mean, it worked in San Francisco. Yep. So, I mean, the team, San Francisco, the team really, I feel like, is what got them as far as they did. Not so much Jimmy. Jimmy did a lot, but
yeah, I mean,
the talent around him.
He definitely had to, like put,
Yeah, he's had some fourth quarter winning drives.
Yeah, but yeah, it has definitely been a very, cognizant team effort.
Sorry,
you're fine. It has definitely been a very, very team-oriented effort. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't be upset with really either one. I know a lot of people really hate on Jimmy and him coming here, but you got to get somebody. Yeah. And the way that this year is, it's going to either be something like that, or it's going to be maybe go all out and get a Russell Wilson. There also maybe Deshaun Watson, depending on what happens with his legal issues. But personally, I wouldn't touch that with a 10-foot pole. But you never know. I mean,
that's true.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, and then in other news, there was a coaching move. The Commanders tight ends coach, Pete Honer, announced his retirement, capping off an extensive career that spanned more than 4 decades. He first coached in the NFL with the St. Louis Cardinals back in 1985, and established a reputation for getting the best out of his players. During his time in the league, he had stints with Arizona, Chicago, the Bears, the San Francisco 49ers, and Carolina Panthers. And for the last 11 years, he's worked with Ron Rivera, both with the Panthers and most recently Washington and, the Commanders or, Redskins or football team. Whatever.
Yeah, no, we're gonna have to start getting used to saying Commander. It's hard every time for me too. I'm like the Commanders, and I know I say it with some stupid inflection in my voice. I'm like, Commander, I'm like, I gotta stop doing that. I gotta stop. But yeah,
it's growing. Like the more times I think you say
it's getting better. It's getting better. It is getting better. But I was tempted to just go with Washington. I'm like, no, you gotta use the damn name.
And then so Coach Honer is known for his old school approach and old school style when it came to developing his players, which was always appreciated by his fellow coaches and players. And Logan Thomas was quoted as saying, he may push people a little harder who need pushing. He may yell at some people a little bit more. He might just talk. He understands his players and how to get through to his players. So that's what Logan Thomas said. And, of course, Logan Thomas went on to have, career best years under Coach Honer there. And he's also been credited by both Vernon Davis, 49ers and Washington great, and Greg Olson as being crucial for their development. So then that leaves the question mark. Who are they going to get? Who are they going to get to be the replacement tight ends coach?
Yes, which they ended up hiring Juan Castillo, who was entering his 26th year of coaching in the NFL. He spent the previous 2 seasons with the Chicago Bears as the offensive line coach and has worked with 3 other teams on both sides of the ball, primarily along the offensive line. Castillo has spent time with the Bears in 2020 to 21, Buffalo Bills in 17 to 18,
been with the Ravens
in 13 to 16.
The Eagles for a long ass time, from 98 to 2012.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Jesus Christ, and 14-year span.
So while he was with the Eagles, he actually worked with Ron Rivera for 5 seasons when Ron was the team's linebackers coach from 99 to 2003, and Castillo was actually he was mostly an offensive coach. But interestingly enough, for the 2011-2012 season, he was actually the Eagles' defensive coordinator. So a rare NFL assistant that has spent time as both an offensive and a defensive coach. You don't see that often.
Yeah, this sounds like a great pickup.
Yeah,
Shit.
I mean, under his guidance, in the 2011 season, the Eagles ended up having a 50-sack season. So his experience on both sides of the ball could prove beneficial.
Hell yeah. I mean, that sounds like a very good pickup to me.
So, I mean, if you got to lose Coach Honer, it's going with somebody that's got a lot of experience there. And then in some unfortunate news, maybe the NFL's original Deebo Samuel, Hall of Famer Charlie Taylor who was a wide receiver and running back who helped Washington to several playoff berths and a Super Bowl appearance, passed away on February the 19th at 80 years old.
Yeah, very unfortunate. He was definitely one of the greats. He was drafted number 3 overall by Washington in the 1964 draft. Had a decorated 14-year career with the franchise, back when players, actually stayed with the team.
Yeah, he spent his entire career
throughout their entire tenure, which is something I definitely miss. Gerald Green is one of my favorites, and it's because he always played with Washington. He was an 8-time Pro Bowler with a first-team All-Pro selection in 1967. He was part of the Hall of Fame's All-1960s team, and he was selected as the AP and UPI Rookie of the Year in '64. Yep. And he was selected to the Hall of Fame in '84. Thank God at least he got in. There's a lot of other Redskin greats that should be in the Hall of Fame.
Joe Jacoby's the most notable one that I can think of. I always think about him, and it's like, how is he not in there? Off that big-ass Hawks
it doesn't make any sense.
Line, And quoted his former head coach, Bill McPeak, was quoted as saying, "Taylor is probably the greatest natural player I've ever seen. He combines power, speed, and fine open field moves." So I didn't really see a lot of him play. Obviously, I've seen him in highlights because it was much before my time.
Obviously,
but it sounds like the man was the NFL's original Deebo Samuel to me, with the power and speed combination. And with the way they used him too. He put up 1,569 yards and 10 touchdowns in his rookie season, becoming the first rookie in 2 decades to finish in the top 10 as a rusher, 6th with 755 yards, and receiver, 8th with 814 yards.
He literally almost had the same amount of yards.
Who does that fucking sound like, though?
Shit.
What player does that sound like? That sounds like a Deebo.
That sounds like Deebo.
Like a Deebo prototype. And Washington had this guy before that was fashionable. So his production.
This is before I have any. I don't know any of these years personally.
So Taylor had made the me neither. I'm just I obviously wasn't alive.
Still though, he was clearly great, and the highlights I had seen, he was.
He had made
a force to be reckoned with.
He had made the Pro Bowl 4 times, from 72 to 75. And then he led Washington with 673 receiving yards in 1972 when the team went 11-3 and played the Dolphins in the Super Bowl. And Washington advanced to the postseason again in 73 and 74. And Taylor was the team's top receiver each season. And at the time of retirement, he was the NFL's all-time receiving leader with 649 receptions for 9,110 yards and 79 touchdowns. And that record stood for 7 years until it was broken in '84 by Charlie Joyner. And obviously, again, it was broken by Jerry Rice. And, that record's been broken a few times since then. But he did.
That was only a record for a short time. But.
Exactly. First and second team NFL, all NFL honors 6 times, and still holds Washington franchise records with 79 receiving touchdowns and 90 overall touchdowns. So pretty impressive.
Absolutely. Definitely sad to hear about his passing. Anytime great player. Obviously, I didn't know of him personally or watching the game, but I love the team, so I'm, not happy to hear about that. As time goes on, and the players that I actually remember as they start to pass away, that's going to be if Darryl Green eventually, he'll pass away. That's going to be a rough day for me because he's my all-time favorite. So, although he's healthy, he's in his mid-60s. That man should be alive for the next 20 years at least.
Yeah, you definitely hope. But that's.
I would hope. He looks good for his age.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's pretty much all we've got. At this point.
Yeah, that's about all we got. That's what I was going to say. I'm sure there'll be some more news as time progresses, getting closer to the draft. There's obviously all kinds of rather stupid mock drafts, in my opinion. Too many. Maybe we can do one for fun just to see what happens, but
maybe
we'll see how it goes as it gets closer to that.
Yep. But all right, join us next week. We'll see what we put together for you guys next week. But have a good night, everyone.
Have a good night. Thanks for joining us.
All All right, and thanks for joining us this week on the Niners News Update. Just want to go over the couple of pieces of news that we have for you this week. Obviously, not a whole lot for you. First thing we're going to discuss is
the most recent rumor to come out. Well, actually, there's two. One a little better than the other, but one NFL executive said the Commanders could justify trading the 11th pick, which, well, let me finish, in the NFL draft for Jimmy Garoppolo, which, in my opinion, is too much. I don't think trading a first-round pick for him is particularly worth it. I know you would love that because obviously the Niners would get a first-round pick, and you'd be, I'm going to take the first-round pick. But no, I mean, you have to admit the first-round, the 11th pick for Jimmy.
As they say, I'd be happy as the proverbial pig in shit.
Right. So, I mean, I hope that is not actually true.
Yeah.
I mean, if it was like a second-round pick, I'd be totally game for that.
That's what we got Jimmy for. And I will say this. I mean, so coming over since we got him for a second-round pick, the man has been to 2 NFC Championship games and established an insane winning record. So I feel like he's only helped his. The injury thing is a concern, but he stayed healthy for 2 out of 4 seasons, really. One of those seasons he was acquired in the middle of the season, so you really can't count that as a full season.
I wouldn't deny that Jimmy has done well with San Francisco. I mean, he has a winning record, so I wouldn't deny any of that. He's 33 and 14. The executive who did
just a 33.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So it's still a good record. The executive who was quoted anonymously about Washington's quarterback options doesn't think that Garoppolo is worth the 11th selection or any first-round choice based on skill set and injury history, which I completely agree with that. But he believes that the organization could justify the move if they deem the draft's top quarterbacks as unstartable, which, given the way it looks as of now, and the talk about the quarterbacks that are in the draft, that seems like it's probably the case. So this a high first-round pick would be quite the price for a quarterback who is mostly efficient in Kyle Shanahan's run-first offense. Niners beat writer Cam Inman this month said the team might take a day 2 draft pick for Jimmy G, which I would much prefer. Among the most QB desperate teams in NFL, Washington would be a bad spot if they once again had to turn to Taylor Heineke as their day 1 starter.
Yeah, I mean, and who knows how accurate that is. I mean, I think that. I mean, I'm not completely one to say that Heineke couldn't potentially end up as a starter one day on a team that's got a little bit more offensive talent. And I know, to counter that point, a lot of people are saying that Jimmy is, he's on a super talented, which he is. But let's take going to Washington, for example. I don't think the drop-off would really be that significant because, let's say he does go to Washington. He's still got Antonio Gibson. He's still got J.D. McKissick if they re-sign him. So they've still got
Curtis Samuel if he's ever healthy
Curtis
again.
Samuel, who could be a gadget
Samuel
player.
Thing.
Yeah. Potentially, obviously Terry McLaurin, who would be obviously number 1 target. And then Logan Thomas at tight end. And Jimmy loves throwing to the tight end as based off his relationship with Kittle. So I really don't think that there would be much drop-off at all. I think that he could definitely succeed in Scott Turner's offense and maybe even produce better than what Heineke. Obviously, he would.
Oh, no, I would say he probably would produce better than Heineke. I mean, Heineke, he had a lot of heart, and he could run and make things happen. But honestly, his arm ability and arm strength is really what killed him. Yeah. I mean, he made some good throws. But
and Jimmy doesn't have a Mahomes arm, but Jimmy does usually throw a tight spiral and usually get the ball in position, albeit sometimes a little bit higher than you might like.
Yeah, I mean, well, no quarterback's perfect, but yes. But I would say Jimmy throws a prettier ball than Heineke does. But the main thing I think everyone liked about Heineke is his heart.
Oh,
the way that he approached the game. And it's hard. It's really hard. The few fans that did hate on him, I don't understand
that pylon dive in the Tampa playoff game.
Dude, that won me over immediently. I was like, all right, well, you got me, bro.
And then I'll always love when Chase Young was just pointing to his jersey, pointing it he's pointing his name on the back. It was just And as I mentioned with Jimmy too, it's. I think what would drive, as we kind of touched on, what would drive that value up would be the fact that, obviously, if we were going into last offseason with the quarterback draft, the quarterback crop in the draft where there were 5 guys taken in the first.
Oh, it'd be very, very
yeah,
different.
Jimmy wouldn't go for anything higher than a second pick, but because of like maybe
Absolutely
like
not.
Malik Willis is like the best like looking quarterback, or like who knows who's going to be the top guy taken. Obviously he's been reported.
Yeah, at this point, I haven't looked
Yeah.
into enough of these players, and draft is a long ways
Yeah.
away. I'm not even going to speculate, but all I know
Yeah.
is what I've heard in general sense that the QBs don't
But
look
if
like
you're
they're
gonna
much
if
much
you
of
were gonna
starters.
use number 11 on a quarterback anyway, like I think you've got a better chance using that pick on Jimmy than any of the guys in this year's draft. If you're set on drafting a quarterback anyway, because I mean
You're right.
he's at least the
actually.
guy.
That's you're
Yeah,
you're completely
yeah.
right. Actually, I agree.
Yeah, I mean,
that is a good point.
Jimmy's
That is a good point. So even if it did come down to being
Yeah,
the
I mean
first,
Jimmy's a guy that if he got you into the playoffs, like in the postseason, I mean he's got a postseason record of
it would still be nice to get him for a second and still have the first round pick. But
Yeah.
you are not wrong, actually. Given especially if they were going to draft a quarterback, which obviously if the prospects were great, that would be the plan.
Yeah.
But given the prospects, then
Yeah, I mean,
you're right. Jimmy for
you
first.
pick up a guy that's like 4-2 in the playoffs on a team that's potentially playoff caliber, and
Yeah.
like he can get you there. Obviously, it's not the most attractive option. If you can get Russ, that's probably the move you want.
It's really it's the cost
Right.
factor. It's like
Absolutely.
because Russ would be the
Absolutely.
cost, Jimmy would be a lot
Yeah.
cheaper. It's really a weighing your options kind of thing there. Obviously, Russell is probably going to be a better quarterback option, but is that cost worth it to the rest
Right.
of your team?
Exactly.
Maybe going with Jimmy and having the picks and having all of that and building
Exactly.
around him would work
That's
better.
right.
I mean, it worked in San Francisco. So I mean, the team, San Francisco, the team really, I feel like, is what got them as far as they did. Not so much Jimmy. Jimmy did a lot, but
Yeah, I mean,
the talent
at
around
moments
him.
he definitely had to like put
Yeah,
put
he's
some
had some fourth quarter,
winning drives
winning
together.
drives.
Yeah,
and-
but yeah,
Absolutely,
it has
absolutely.
definitely been a very cognizant team effort.
Sorry,
with it.
my
No,
ear itched.
you're fine. It has definitely been a very, very team-oriented effort. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So I mean, I wouldn't be upset with really either one. I know a lot of people really hate on Jimmy and him coming here, but you got to get somebody.
Yeah.
And the way that this this year is, it's going to either be something like that, or it's going to be maybe go all out and get a Russell Wilson. There also maybe Deshaun Watson,
Yeah.
depending on what happens with his
That's
legal
true.
issues. But personally, I wouldn't touch that with a
Yeah.
10-foot pole. But
Yeah.
you never know. I mean,
That's true. That's true. And now that we've covered the potential news with where Jimmy might end up in other Niner news, wanted to also mention the fact that new Dolphins coach Mike McDaniel is having some familiar faces join him in Miami, with the addition of wide receivers coach Wes Welker, who is taking the same position in Miami, and also tight ends coach John Embry, who also left San Francisco for Miami. River Craycraft, wide receiver River.
Oh no, not River Craycraft.
River Craycraft has signed. 49ers legend River Craycraft has signed with the Miami Dolphins. He, of course, began his career with the Denver Broncos, and he played his last 2 seasons with the 49ers, seeing action in 15 NFL games, most recently playing in 6 games this last season, all on special teams, didn't have any catches. So Craycraft doesn't figure to make a huge splash in the receiving core for Miami, but he does have experience in Mike McDaniel's system, and he should be able to factor in the return game and play on special teams. So definitely sad to have him lost off our special teams unit. Obviously, he was always a player I liked cheering.
Yeah, he was pretty
Yeah,
solid. And his
Yeah.
name, I always
Yeah.
liked his name.
just like the Tucson intersection, River and Craycraft. It's River Craycraft.
Yeah, it's literally like it's so close
So,
to it. It's
Good
one
luck,
letter
good
off
luck to you,
basically.
Coach Welker and Coach Embry and River down in Miami. Hope it all goes well for you. The other thing I wanted to touch on real quick is the 49ers have some offseason decisions to make, most notably with defensive end D Ford, who's fully guaranteed $4.6 million. His $4.6 million roster bonus became fully guaranteed on Tuesday. So salary cap analyst Joel Corey said that while the Niners are officially due to pay Ford that $4.6 million, it doesn't do much to affect how they'll operate with the veteran defensive ends contract in the coming months. There's also a chance that they keep him on the roster in hopes that he can get healthy enough to contribute, although that definitely feels like a long shot after he's missed 29 of the last 36 games, due to back injuries and neck injuries. So, in fact, in 3 seasons with the Niners, he's only played in 18 games, racking up 9.5 sacks.
Jesus.
Last season, he appeared in 6 games, so it started off well. We thought we were going to get some production out of him. He played in 6 games, recorded 3 sacks, but then we never saw him again. So, interesting to see if D Ford is on the roster. Obviously, when he's when he's playing, he's a dynamic player because in 18 games he's got 9.5 sacks. So
9. Yeah, I was gonna say that's a good ratio.
Yeah, I mean, when he's out there, he's producing, but when he's not out there, and that unfortunately seems to be more often than not, then that's a lot of money to be paying a guy that's not going to play. And we just got rid of Jalen Hurd, who never played. So we'll have to see what happens with that. But really, outside of that, it's really all the Niner-related news that we have for you guys at this time. So join us next week. Free agency's coming up here in the next couple of weeks, so stay tuned for that. But thanks for joining us on the show. Good night, everybody.
Have a good night, everybody.
And that is going to do it for this week on the Extra Point Show. Thanks again for joining us here. As always, we appreciate you. And if you're not already, make sure that you like and subscribe and follow us on all the various social medias that we'll have on the screen here. And have a good night.